Hello, I'm Richard Gisbert, and you're at The Listening Post. This week, Myanmar opens up to the media.
As our Asia correspondent John Sparks reports now from Rangoon.
Two questions. Why and how long will it last?
We're just going home. So.
Bidding bye-bye to B-Sky B. So far, the phone hacking scandal has cost James Murdoch 2 jobs and counting.
Oh!
Journalists in Hungary say the government is out to muzzle them. And there's only one place Mitt Romney will ever make it as a rapper. And that is in our web video of the week.
I'm not looking for a colony on the moon, just for someone to blame.
The military junta ruling Myanmar has had a fairly simple media strategy. Keep Myanmar out of the news and keep journalists out of Myanmar. However, coverage of the April 1st parliamentary elections suggests that the country formerly known as Burma is changing the way it deals with the media. Not only were foreign journalists allowed in to cover the story, or at least most of it, but opposition leader Aung San Suu Kyi's by-election victory was actually announced on state-owned television. Now, there's good reason to suspect that this new openness is a calculated, strategic decision by the government to end economic sanctions against Myanmar and to attract the foreign investment the country badly needs. But these are significant changes nonetheless. Our starting point this week is Yangon, Myanmar.
Southeast Asia correspondent Zoe Daniel has spent the last 4 days in Burma following its first tentative steps towards democracy.
The most remarkable thing about being in Myanmar at this time is the fact that we are here.
Foreign journalists and international observers have been given the widest access they've ever had.
You can see the journalists are standing, filming openly on the street, via satellite link-up, reporting live from Rangoon. So it's quite amazing to see this.
We can go live now to Rangoon.
I think it is a win-win solution, and I really love to see the changes.
Fergal Keane, BBC News, Rangoon.
Appearances can be revealing. Journalists on the streets of Yangon reporting in the open are news in Myanmar.
And CNN has not been allowed to cover the polls.
This is a country where the last general election, less than 2 years ago, was conducted in near darkness.
We can't get a live signal out of there. Journalists, foreign journalists, not allowed in the country.
In 2010, foreign journalists were not allowed to come into the country. So we had to come in on tourist visas and very much sneak around the city. Eventually we were chased by undercover police officers around town.
The BBC's Sue Lloyd-Roberts did enter the country as a tourist.
3 years ago we were working with one UK news team who wanted to do a satellite link-up from Burma, and it was a very big deal in how they would get the equipment in there.
We went undercover to meet one of the NLD's leaders.
How they would be able to broadcast secretly and get that out, and how they wouldn't be arrested on the way out once it had been broadcast.
So it is a pretty amazing turnaround to now be invited by the government here to cover these by-elections involving Aung San Suu Kyi and to, like I say, have freedom. It's a big turnaround.
Aung San Suu Kyi's personal election victory was noteworthy, as was the way it was announced on state-owned channels. Suu Kyi is a symbol of resistance in Myanmar, but she's not the only one. For 20 years, DVB, the Democratic Voice of Burma, has been beaming news into Myanmar from Norway and Thailand. Now DVB says it will open 2 bureaus inside the country with the government's blessing. Mazima is another journalistic exile that's coming home. The publication has been based in India, but already has opened an office in Yangon, again, above board and legal.
A lot has changed. For example, there is a vibrant private media here, which is doing well in terms of business model. The people are talking very openly, and I'm positive that this process would continue. Of course, whether there are risks or not, yes, there are risks in every transition, and these risks have to be taken.
And other journalistic institutions are being created. For 2 decades, IIWIN has been the Associated Press's eyes and ears in Myanmar, reporting for the news agency despite severe restrictions. Now she's forming a union for journalists.
I thought that there is a change of government. It's more than a year now, so I thought, the local journalists should also have a journalist club, association, or union, whatever it is, because it's good to have a group, mainly not just to promote the freedom of expression, but mainly to protect the journalists.
Often in politics, when changes are made, the question is not just why, but why now? The answer in Myanmar's case has to do with economics. This once resource-rich country of about 60 million people is impoverished. Its high inflation is exacerbated by economic sanctions imposed by the EU and the US. Sanctions the Americans have already said will be eased.
They have to change because of global situations. They can't control the wave of globalization. They know very well, some of the leaders. That is why they decided to change. If they don't want to change, or if they can't change, they will lose everything. So they need survive. If they need survive, they have to change.
Allowing the press freedom is one of the key things that they will be judged on by the international community. They know that. But they're still only making quite limited reforms. One person in Burma put it like, we've had 1% freedom, now we've got 4% freedom. It's wonderful. Freedom for us has increased by 400%, but we still only have very limited real freedom.
This is what the government wants to see. They want to make it look good, especially for the international community, because they want to spread the message like this election is free and fair and media can report everything in the perfect way. But I still see there are some restriction to the media and fairness depending on which media you are working on.
The remaining restrictions include a virtual ban on reporting on ethnic fighting in northern Myanmar. And the government allows foreign media much more leeway in their coverage than domestic journalists enjoy.
A guerrilla unit escorts us to outlooks on the outskirts of Kachin State.
The larger issue has to do with the law. The relaxing of restrictions so far has not come through legislative changes, but through governmental decree. A new media law is coming, but journalists have yet to see it and will reserve judgment until they do.
One detail really that has emerged is that the Press Scrutiny and Registration Division may be disbanded. This is a department where the local newspapers must send their entire copies. Every single article they write must go to this department before they print it, and it must be censored. And often they will get their articles back and they'll have huge red lines right through an article, or a red ring around a certain sentence that must be removed before it goes to print.
I only want to see that this new media law doesn't become a new tool for the government to impose further restrictions on the freedom of the press and expression, and freedom of the journalists in their activities.
That's the concern in Myanmar today, that these new media freedoms will prove temporary, illusory. However, the government official in charge of information is unequivocal on that the changes are here for good, and the new media law will ensure that.
We have to have the new law before the end of the 2012. So when the new law is enacted, the old will be abolished and there will be no censorship.
There will be no censorship in Myanmar. We'll put our own red circle around that quote, and as they say in the news business, watch this space. Our Global Village voices now on the coverage of the story in Myanmar.
I have seen a difference in these elections compared with the ones in 2010 in regards to media freedom. There's the obvious examples of more reports on Aung San Suu Kyi and NLD activities, as well as other activists. I think, though, a major problem in regards to media freedom is the only people who really have internet access in Burma is in the main cities. So in conflict areas and ethnic areas where communities are deeply marginalized, they do not have access to these internet technologies or other communications.
They are allowing journalists to do in Naypyidaw, Rangoon and Mandalay for the election campaign. That is good, that is a positive step. But still the restriction on media, those laws are still there. So these journalists, they can, the regime can arrest them anytime. So these laws need to be removed.
The military are allowing freedom in the media, and it's an experiment on their part. But the real test of this will be when they start looking at what the minority language media are saying out in the areas where they are fighting a war, one of the longest wars in world history. And that's the real test.
Time now for Listening Post News Bites. Media hoaxes are taken very seriously by the government in China, especially if word travels via the web. Late last month, rumors circulated in Chinese cyberspace that there had been an attempted coup in Beijing. Pictures appeared of army tanks in the streets of the capital, shots that, as it turns out, were taken at a parade 3 years earlier. As a consequence of the hoax, the authorities have now shut down 16 websites in China. They've penalized 2 major internet companies, and they've arrested 6 bloggers who allegedly perpetuated the rumors. The 2 companies involved, Sina and Tencent, are China's versions of the micro-blogging website Twitter. They were both forced to disable their comment section on their sites for 3 days, and then had to pledge to strengthen their management after being criticized and punished. The developments all come after Chinese authorities cracked down on the net in mid-February, and this has also coincided with the dismissal of the Communist Party member and top leadership contender Bo Xilai. According to China's official news agency, there have been 1,065 arrests and more than 208,000 deletions of so-called harmful online messages in the past 2 months. James Murdoch's tactical retreat from London to New York is now almost complete. Murdoch the Younger has now stepped down as the chairman of BSkyB, News Corporation's satellite broadcasting company in Britain. Back in February, Murdoch quit as the head of News International, News Corp's UK newspaper arm. That's the part of the company that landed News Corp in so much legal trouble. In his resignation letter, Murdoch Jr. reportedly said that he was stepping aside because he did not want to become a lightning rod for complaints about News Corp, but it's a little late for that. The judicial inquiry into the phone hacking scandal is now due to issue its report by the end of this month, and neither James nor Father Rupert are expected to escape criticism for either failing to deal with criminal activities within the company or worse, for helping News Corp cover up the wrongdoing. Reuters is trying to repair its relationship with Tehran after being banned there for the way it reported a particular story. The news agency messed up a feature piece about a group of female martial arts experts, which was headlined "Thousands of Female Ninjas Train as Iran's Assassins." The headline was later changed to 3,000 women ninjas train in Iran after complaints were made.
The Reuters report is clearly misleading.
According to a report by Iran's English-language news service, Press TV, the female athletes were asked by the Reuters journalist whether they would defend their homeland if it was attacked by foreign invaders, to which they replied yes, as anyone would.
They definitely did not expect to be described as killers.
Iran's culture minister has suspended Reuters indefinitely and forced the news agency's staff in Tehran to hand in their press cards. Stephen Adler, Reuters' editor-in-chief, has said, "We acknowledge this error occurred and regard it as a very serious matter. It was promptly corrected the same day it came to our attention." Adler also added that the agency is in discussions with Iranian authorities to have its accreditation restored. The American broadcaster Keith Olberman is running out of news networks. The U.S. cable channel Current TV is the latest outfit to fire Olberman, who was just 1 year into a 5-year, $50 million contract.
Push back against the tides of pollution and deregulation.
According to a statement from Current TV, which is partly owned by former U.S. Vice President Al Gore, it was ending the relationship because Olberman no longer reflected the values on which the channel was founded, which could mean anything. Keith Olberman had complained about the channel not living up to its contractual obligations to him, and for failing to have him host some of its major political event coverage. Olberman also tweeted that he will be taking legal action against Current.
This is going to be the last edition of your show.
Back in January of last year, Olberman had an acrimonious departure from MSNBC. Prior to that, it has not ended well between Olberman and other networks such as ESPN and Fox Sports. A little more than a year ago, Hungary's conservative government, led by Prime Minister Viktor Orban, passed a new media law. Thousands of people have since taken to the streets. Some journalists have even gone on a hunger strike over what they call an attempt to centralize control and to curb media freedoms. There's one station, Club Radio, that finds itself at the center of this conflict. It's a liberal station, the only one prepared to openly criticize the government. Now it's fighting for its life and for its license to broadcast. Keeping a close eye on all of this is Brussels, because as a relatively new member of the European Union, in Hungary is subject to some stringent standards on freedom of the press, standards that its critics say the country no longer meets. The Listening Post's Phillips now from Budapest on the fight over the media in Hungary.
Hungary's new media law gives more power to a single regulator than any other media regulatory body in Europe. It's not uncommon for post-communist countries to have struggles with media freedom since the 1990s, but Hungary's new media law definitely poses the biggest challenge to media freedom that we've seen.
Club Radio, one of Budapest's only liberal talk and news radio stations, is currently fighting to keep the broadcast license it has used for a decade. It is the highest profile case to date in the Hungarian government's attempt at media reform.
The license of Club Radio expired in 2011. The Media Council published the rules of the competition for the renewal of this license. We lost with one single point.
The decision to take the frequency of Club Radio, it was a political decision from the very top.
Since the 1st of January 2011, Hungarians have been protesting a new set of media laws they see as limiting freedom of the press. The laws were put into practice by Prime Minister Viktor Orban's conservative Fidesz party. Among the provisions, fines as high as 100,000 euros for print publications and 720,000 euros for broadcasters if their output is ruled politically partisan or offends public morals. The other issue is who decides when these laws have been broken. The government created a media council and appointed all 5 members. The combination of these laws, which are vague and therefore open to interpretation, as well as the body that enforces them, has Hungarians fearing the worst.
The problems come in when you look closer at the media authority and its composition. So it's not that the board necessarily has this incredibly far-reaching powers, it's that all of the members were appointed by the government.
They created a media law which tried to mix very much control, supervision over the whole media sphere, including public media, including internet, including the written press.
Az új médiatörvény óta mindennapos veszélyben van a sajtó, a média szabadsága. Engedjük!
There was a huge protest inside the country from those who think that the press freedom is one of the most important values of any democratic country.
There have been numerous protests over the last year, but the minister in charge of government communications dismisses the idea that there has been any political interference.
The new Media Council, the new regulatory body as such, is not overseen by the government. So as a matter of fact, I'm not even supposed to go too deeply into its affairs because that's an independent body. If there's anybody who is overseeing it, it is Parliament. With the office, new kind of set of standards come. If the person is up to these standards, there cannot be any complaint. If he or she not, then there should be an inquiry. So far, for the past almost year and a half, nobody has ever complained actually concerning the independence of the body.
That's more than debatable. It's not just about the media law or those who enforce it. Hungarians don't like what they're seeing on state-owned television. Here's an interview with a member of the European Parliament last December. In the background, state TV blurred out the former head of Hungary's Supreme Court. What relationship were Hungarian state media trying to hide?
They are not just making favorable coverage with their own people installed in key positions, reporters, editors also included, how they are hired, but they even altered the facts. They have been manipulating the news in the last 18 months, which is, I think, unacceptable. And that's why when the whole protest on 10th of December 2011 it started.
The fight in Hungary over the media has been noticed both close to home by the European Union in Brussels and far away in Washington, D.C.
State Secretary of the United States and a lot of other people of the European Union expressed their support and taking Club Radio as a symbol for freedom of press.
You are in a club. You have the rules of the club. You cannot say that I'm joining Europe just for the benefits for me or for my interests, but when the rules are not favorable for me, then you don't abide of the rules. So democratic institutions, freedom of press are parts of this rule.
For a country that prides itself on its relatively recent democratic traditions, many Hungarians feel that this new media law is a step in the wrong direction. Whilst only a handful of journalists have been prepared to speak out, tens of thousands of viewers, readers and listeners have rallied in support of media freedoms.
There was a demonstration on the street on the 22nd of January for Klub Radio. About 30,000 people were there, and they expressed very loudly that they want Klub Radio. Klub Radio has become a symbol of freedom of press, and we want to win our war for press of freedom and for Klub Radio.
These demonstrators may not yet have won their war, but they have prevailed in one recent battle. On March the 14th, the country's appeals court overturned the media authority's decision to strip Klub Radio of its broadcasting license. This judicial decision may or may not affect the Media Council's future actions, but it should at least placate the demonstrators for a while and allow Viktor Orban's government to continue professing its support of media freedom.
There's nothing wrong with Hungarian media freedom and media environment, and it's alive and kicking. The Hungarian legal system itself provides for all kinds of guarantees concerning the freedom of press, the freedom of expression, plurality of the media, and simply it is not possible to use the Hungarian media law to curtail these kind of freedoms in any way.
Still, this is a big issue in Hungary, and between the protests on the streets, the ones in the parliament, the court cases, and those on the outside who are passing judgment on Hungary from afar, this story is far from over.
More Global Village Voices now on Hungary and media freedoms.
The key problem with the media law in Hungary is the Media Council. It's an embodiment of arbitrary power. We are going to bring down the arbitrary Media Council. We are going to do it by combining public protest with legal challenge at the Constitutional Court of Hungary and the European Court of Human Rights.
The media authority is clearly biased, both in an ideological and in a political sense. But it's not about direct political censorship as many have feared. It's about double standards. If you are pro-government, you can get away simply with any professional or ethical offenses. It's much like Berlusconi was in the early 1980s.
Finally, as any aspiring U.S. presidential candidate knows, it's only a matter of time before a mashup of their endless campaign rhetoric finds its way onto the World Wide Web. Now, it's almost certain that the Republican nomination will go to Mitt Romney, but as a viral video producer from Australia points out, the former governor of Massachusetts has been back and forth on a few issues. To make that point, he's taken some speech extracts and media appearances of Romney's flip-flopping and cut them to the tune of Eminem's hit single, The Real Slim Shady. Our web video of the week is called Will the Real Mitt Romney Please Stand Up? It's closing in on 3 million hits online. We'll see you next time at The Listening Post.
Can I have your attention, please? Can I have your attention, please? Will the real Mitt Romney please stand up? I repeat, will the real Mitt Romney please stand up? We're going to have a problem here.
Y'all act like you haven't seen a Mormon before. George, down on the floor. I'm not concerned about the very poor. Got it wrong. Sorry, that's not what I meant. I want every American to be in the top 1%. I'm really named Willard. That's my first name. I'm not looking for a colony on the moon, just for someone to blame. I like being able to fire people.
I'm Newt Gingrich.
You're fired.
I'm Rick Santorum, and I'm fired.
Boom, boom, boom.
Conservative women love Mitt Romney.
And I love cars. I love lakes. I'm running for office, for Pete's sake. With regards to abortion, pro-life, pro-choice, I firmly believe in my own singing voice. For purple mountains' majesty above the fruited plain. With regards to abortion, you can choose your own adventure. It's a Republican dimension. And I'm more concerned about the banks. They're unable to lend. Corporations are people, my friend. My dog is on the roof. My dog is on the roof.
Who let the dogs out?
Understand, I'm an exception. The Obama contraception. Not a vulture. I'm an eagle. I'm going to get my lawn cut by illegals. There will be an influx Hispanic voters in trucks. Look, if you don't believe, I'll tell you what, $10,000? Well, I made a lot of money. Matter of factually. So I drove a couple of Cadillacs, actually. I have emotion and passion. That's a joke for the record. But if you want the soul of America restored, come on board. Take your fair share and every Mormon raise your underwear. Sing the chorus. Papa Bear.
So with the real Mitt Romney, please stand up. Please stand up. Please stand up. Please stand up.
Boom, boom. I'm Mitt Romney, and I'm the real Romney.
So with the real Mitt Romney, please stand up. Please stand up. Please stand up.